Catching Up with Sienna, part 2 of the Simpsons episode, where I'm going to be talking to Don Barrozo, who's an editor for The Simpsons. He also worked on the TV series Futurama, King of the Hill, and The Critic, as well as many others. He also has a love for music and is a musician. Now, without further ado, here's my interview with Don Barrozo. How did you get started working on The Simpsons?
Well, with The Simpsons, I started all the way back in 1989, the very beginning of the series. I was an assistant editor on commercials.
Mm-hmm.
And the negative cutter, now that's a job that involves a person that takes all the negative from the film that's been shot and organizing it so that the editors can use it. That job is not so much done anymore because everything's digital. But the negative cutter that worked for both the company I was working for and Klasky Chupo, who started with the animation for The Simpsons, he recommended that I talk to them because I was kind of getting finished with the commercial thing. And I also had a big interest in animation because I, at that time, was an artist a lot more than I am now. So I thought that was a good opportunity for me to kind of get into the animation business, which was something I'd been interested in. But as it turned out, I really enjoyed the editing part of it, and I got to work on the whole picture at the same time. So that was really fun to me. So then I just stuck with the editing. I had a knack for it. I'm also a musician. So editing has a lot to do with rhythm and timing. And so it really suited me well.
That's so interesting. Can you explain a little bit more about your role as the editor on The Simpsons?
Yeah, as the editor, I'm responsible for taking, well, now, it's evolved because as the technology's evolved, so has my job.
Mm-hmm.
There's different incarnations where the show becomes something that you can look at that's moving, right? So at first it starts out with just still drawn pictures, and then you have the audio, which is kind of like a radio show, right? So there's no picture with the audio yet. It's like a show that you listen to on the radio where it's just people talking. And then the first time that we are able to visualize it, we put together those images, we string them together into like rough animation. That's called the animatic. And then from the animatic, that's gradually replaced with the final color picture. And then once the color picture is all put together, then it's trimming and making sure that the timing really flows. One of the things that with animation, the editor is kind of an actor as well, because the performances of the animated characters are still changeable. You can still make things a little bit faster. You can add little dramatic pauses. You can do things that give the performance a little more, you can really tighten it up.
Yeah.
So basically that's it. It's all the process of assembling the picture with the audio and then refining the way that plays.
One of the things that I, like you were saying, how it dramatically changed a lot since you started working on it from day one to now. One of the things that I did is, this shows how big of a fan I am. I remember because I started watching The Simpsons a little less than a year ago, and I finished all 32 seasons, and I watched the movie, I actually, I know the spot where exactly, and I keep in my head ever since, of where the animation changed, the intro and the picture gets better to HD. I know it's season 20, episode 10.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure. That's when the animation gets better.
Okay. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what that is. But I will tell you one thing, that as we've changed from film, where it was really kind of, if you go back and look, of course, when you start at the beginning, you see that it seems much more crude.
Yeah.
Now that's all old technology. I mean, that's kind of old school. That's hand painted cells. That's shooting on a camera. That's editing on film, and it refined. And as we got into, when we first started to move into the digital domain, we had to imitate, we had to do that in steps so that the audience wasn't too shocked by the way that it looked. When digital first became the medium that we used, um, it seemed very sterile and motionless because we're so used to seeing these things that are almost imperceptible, like film grain. I don't know if you know what that is, but if you're watching something that's been shot on film, there's just these little dancing colors that are inherent to film that you don't get on digital. So once you move into digital, if you have some very flat art, like the way The Simpsons was done, it just looks like something's wrong with it, like it just died, right? So we had to add film grain to make it look like it was film still. And then gradually we started to make the changes into making it more digital friendly, like adding more grading into the backgrounds, right? So these things that you notice as being improvements are actually adding depth and texture, because now you have all this to play with. And also, you're not hand painting cells anymore. It's a lot easier to fill in color areas and do all this stuff than to have somebody actually sitting there painting with a little brush, right? Because that's the way it was for the first, all the way up until the early 2000s. It was like that. So after that point, then you actually were just blocking in, like you might do with Photoshop or something like that. You're blocking in colors and adding in stuff like that and layers. It's a lot easier to do that, and you can do a lot more.
So did the transition from using like the traditional ink and paint to digital ink and paint affect the editing process a lot, or did it like not affect it too much?
No, not the editing process. No. No, timing is timing. So basically, while it was, although I will say, not being on film anymore involves quite a bit of steps. I don't think I even had my first computer until around 2001, which was pretty late, right? Pretty late especially for an editor. Most things had way moved on. The Simpsons was the last, I believe it was the very last, the last network television show to be done on film, because we just, it's like the process. It's kind of like moving a cruise ship, right? It's like it's moving along. All these technical steps that have to be done, it's hard to change in the middle of all this because, I don't know if you know, but a show, one episode of The Simpsons basically takes about 8 to 9 months from beginning to end to make, right? So things are really in the pipeline for a long time, and you've got multiple shows happening all at once. So, but once I changed to film editing, to digital editing, I had to learn a lot of stuff. It was a pretty big shock for me because I had started cutting film. I was using traditional tools like the splicer and split reels and the flatbed, and I was doing the whole thing like that, synchronizing 2 reels of the mag audio with the 35 millimeter picture. So moving to digital, it's made it a lot easier, really. It's like I can make changes and undo them all really quickly, and I can do things like taking out every 3rd frame to speed up passages and things like that really would have been hard for me and the negative cutter both, because he would have to imitate exactly what I do on film. So I basically, because I've been on the show for over 30 years, have done the whole evolution from film, and from traditional film-based, post-production to entirely digital post-production.
So as an editor on the show, are you involved with other aspects of the show, like the writing or music, or do you mostly just stick with the editing?
Not with writing. Sometimes with music, we can do things that influence the final decisions. We can put in temp music that the producers will say, that's great, let's just do something similar to that, because they will go and they'll do their own thing. They'll have the composer score something that's very similar to that. Sometimes the placement of a particular piece of music will be great, it'll be just right on. They don't want to mess with that, they want to do that. So something like that. But basically it comes down to the construction of all of the elements together. Yeah,
Uh,
not the writing or anything.
mm-hmm. And do you ever interact with the actors in on the show?
No, I don't, because we have two different locations that we do the show in. We have the animation studio in Burbank, or because it's pandemic times, all around Los Angeles. Everybody's, in fact, I'm in the spare bedroom in our house right now, which was my daughter's old bedroom, and now it's Simpsons Editing Central. And this is it's kind of funny, but it's been, everybody's kind of just off in their own homes doing what we do. Locations, yes, animation studio is in Burbank. The Fox lot is where the producers and the writers work,
Mm-hmm.
and that is Century City, not too far from here. But the actors record there. Um, Mostly, sometimes the actors are doing their recording from the studio remotely, and it's just going to Fox. But so we are kind of in two separate campuses.
Uh-huh.
I'm not there. Mostly the directors will attend. They'll attend the recording sessions, but not for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to things like that, but I'm not. I've been to scoring sessions. I've been to table reads, but that's more of like a special occasion. It's not a normal thing.
I understand that the music plays a big role in your life, and you love music so much. Do you think that music is helpful with editing?
Oh, absolutely. Hmm. Yeah, because all of it is trying to convey emotion, right? You're trying to tell a story, and emotion is key to the story, the storytelling, the way that you're feeling or what you're feeling, if you're sympathizing with the characters, all of that. So yes, absolutely. And the editing and the music in conjunction with each other do that. Kind of lead or host you through the story, right?
And what is your favorite part about your job? Is there like because you've been doing The Simpsons and animating for so many years?
Well, it's really satisfying to have a sequence really get dialed in to where it was kind of funny, but then all of a sudden you find yourself just laughing at it involuntarily, and you know that you got it right. So it's
Mhm.
just like it makes you all of a sudden just kind of like it switches, and it can happen with just a couple frames here and there, right? You can change a performance, you can change the timing of something.
Mhm.
Um, Also, you know, because what happens is we send over materials over to Korea to animate, and things aren't, they're not like in finished form. They're in kind of a speculative form. They're on exposure sheets. They're written down on, they've been sort of like roughly decided what the timing is going to be. But once you get it back, then you really see what it is, and then you can fine tune it. So sometimes there'll be things that are just kind of dead spots, like somebody walking out of a room or walking across a room, something, just things that are just too long. And
Mhm.
when you're watching it, if you're not really thinking about it that way, you don't realize that you're kind of getting bored. Even a moment or two here and there all adds up to it was okay, as
Yeah.
opposed to when things really move along where it's like, that was good,
Yeah.
right? Because your audience's expectations, they already see what's coming sometimes, or they know when the next thing should come, and it doesn't come then,
Mhm.
right? So they're a little bit, this is subconscious. You're a little bit like, okay, well, when's the next thing, right? Because we kind of have this rhythm to how we perceive things.
Mhm.
We kind of know we want to keep being engaged.
Uh,
So that's a big thing. But the other thing that I really like about the animation industry is the people.
yeah.
And I think that it goes for anything that you might do as a career. But when it comes down to it, um, doing what you love is really great. Doing it with people that you respect and are kind to each other and are also inspired. That's the best part.
Mhm.
So yeah, animation is like that too. Yeah.
Yeah. I love watching animated stuff especially too. It's one of my favorite things.
Oh, that's great.
And do you have a favorite episode of The Simpsons? I know there's a lot of episodes, but is there one
Oh
in particular
boy,
you remember?
I don't anymore. There were certain ones that I could point out. There are always classic ones, and a lot of them go back way, way back, like the Mr. Plow episode and things like that.
Oh yeah.
They go back because there were things that happened that were ahead of their time, or something we'd never seen before, right? In on television, period. Because we were pushing the boundaries of humor, but also pushing the boundaries of just TV in general,
Yeah.
right? Like things that just, even that's why I think the first season, as crude as it was it got people so excited, is because it was something really different.
Yeah.
And so the episodes that pop out to me are the ones like that we're seeing something that we've never seen before. It's harder to. I love the episodes that we're doing now. I think that we're doing great stuff now, and they're great for different reasons. It's like they're so rich visually, and our writers are still finding new things to write about.
Yeah.
Uh, even if it's sort of a take on something that we've been through before. We're almost 700 episodes in, so if you consider that you have a plot and a subplot with every episode, you're talking about a lot of stories,
Yeah.
right? So it all kind of goes into a blur for me. I have so many shows in my head. It's like on my day-to-day, it's like we're talking about episodes like ZABF 15 and QAB, QAB FO4. It's like I'm like, well, which one is that? Now they're shows I'm working on right now, but it's kind of like and that was the one where, but yeah, this is a middle of a work day. I am where I work right now, which is kind of cool because I'm bringing you right to the studio.
Yeah, I know that one of my favorite episodes is that I've remembered is in season 7. I don't really recall what episode it was, but I know in season 7 there was an episode called King Homer, and that was one of my favorites. I remember when Homer gains he gains a lot of weight so he can work from home.
Oh, that's a great one. I have to watch that one again. We have Disney Plus, so that's the good thing about that is I can go look for that one again.
Yeah, same. And do you have a favorite character on the show? Or someone
Wow.
or a character you most relate to?
Most relate to, well, probably Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the sensible one. But I think that the funny thing about it is that there's something relatable in every character. It's like
Hmm.
I think every person can look at every character and say, "Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I've done that." Homer's is just so funny,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So it's hard to, but then that the great thing about the Simpson universe is that we're doing a show right now starring Comic Book Guy, and you can go to those kinds of stories, and they're great. They're like, what do you call it? They're kind of like, you could call them minor characters, but we've been around for so long that you're very familiar with them. So it's that's the great thing, is that we have so much variety because we have so many different characters you can go and follow their stories.
Hmm. Do you have like a favorite TV show besides The Simpsons that you like?
Well, yeah, I mean, I loved Game of Thrones. We're watching Schitt's Creek right now, which
Uh-huh.
is hilarious. And then I don't know, just a bunch of stuff. You
Yeah.
know, I don't binge much on TV. It's kind of like by the end of the day, I've been watching so much because I
Yeah.
sit here and I watch the show all day. So honestly, it's kind of like we'll watch something, and a lot of times that I almost prefer to watch stuff that's non-narrative, like cooking shows and things like that, where it's just like I'm just kind of vegging out on something,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely.
What about you? Do you have any other? What are your favorites?
Well, The Simpsons is definitely one of my favorites. I can
Yeah,
tell you almost everything about The Simpsons. Um, I like The Office. I watch
The Office is great. Yeah.
The Office is one of my favorites, and I mean, what was something I've actually, because you're saying like cooking shows. One of the shows that I actually got interested in is Nailed It on Netflix.
Oh yeah,
I've been getting more interested in. I've watched a few episodes in the past, but now in my it's one of the shows that I watch a lot too, and I think there's some pretty funny episodes in there. You probably spend a lot of time in the editing room. What's your favorite snack to snack on?
my favorite snack, chocolate.
Do you have like a type of chocolate that you like to eat, like a candy bar or?
Well, yeah, dark chocolate. Like, so my son's 10 and he had a piñata for his birthday, and we filled it with those Hershey's dark chocolate, the little ones, right? And then we bashed that open, and then that all kind of went into a bowl, and that's been my sort of my subsistence. But yeah, while I'm sitting here snacking, when I was at work, I'd go and get potato chips, stuff like that. Not
Yeah.
very exciting.
I love to edit animation actually myself. There's a platform I use called Beyond. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not,
I'm not.
but
No.
it's like you animate your stuff, but you also get to like I edit all the things. So I add in the movements with the animation, but I also like revise it and see what I need to fix and put it all together and change some scenes sometimes.
Oh, that's
Do
great.
you have any platforms that you recommend for not just me, but also like young people who are inspired by editing and animation process?
Well, I would say the more you can learn about Adobe Premiere, um, then you can really grow into that,
Mm-hmm.
because Premiere and Photoshop go together. All of that. I didn't really ever use that. I work on the Avid Media Composer, and that's what I've done ever since we moved over to digital. There's another editor on the Fox lot who does finishing stuff, and so we have the same systems so that we can work together. So I'll pass off sessions and media to him, and then so we've been on that. But I started doing, because I'm a musician too, and we started doing music videos. My wife and I uh, have a duo, and we started doing our own music videos. And I moved over to Premiere because it's more flexible. You can do more effects, things like that, and all that. And that has been really fun because it's pretty intuitive. It's more so than Media Composer. And I don't know, if you're going to be putting stuff together, you might as well go to a platform that you can grow with.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much that you can do from there. And
Yeah.
that's also become industry standard.
Uh-huh.
I mean, more so than Media Composer, what I do. For Final Cut, not so much anymore. It used to be,
Mm-hmm.
but then yeah, they were overtaken by Premiere.
Thank you so much for doing this. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and you had so many interesting things to say and a lot of stuff that I learned that just fills my Simpsons knowledge up even more.
Well, thank you for asking me. I know that it's funny because when you think of The Simpsons, you think of animation. The first things that people are interested in is some things like, well, the recording sessions with the voices, or the animators, or the writers, and things like that. But anytime I've ever given somebody a tour of The Simpsons post-production process, it's like, wow, I had no idea. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like, I think it's kind of a great opportunity for folks to see that this is a really interesting aspect of it too. It
yes,
doesn't
definitely.
really sound like it if somebody's just telling you it's editing, Simpsons editing, whatever. It's like there's a lot to it, and
Yeah.
it also is the final. It's where everything comes together,
Hmm.
right? The animation comes together there, the music comes together, the dialogue comes together. It all comes down into, and this with making your own films. It all comes down into the final assembly, fine tuning that, putting the final polish on it, you
Hmm.
know. But that's why a lot of famous directors, their favorite thing to do was to sit in the editing room with the editor and see the story come together, right?
That's so cool. I definitely learned so much from you today. It was a pleasure to learn a different side from The Simpsons because I definitely watched videos of like the actors doing like different voices, but now it's so cool because I have the acting side, but I also have the editing side, like behind the scenes, and it's really cool to learn all of that about my favorite show.
Great. Well, it's been an honor to be your guest. So thank you for asking me.
Bye.
Bye, Sienna.
Thank you so much, Mr. Barrozo. I had a great conversation with you and learned a ton. Now here's a quick fun fact. Homer's famous expression, "dope," was added to the Oxford English Dictionary in 2001. The word is defined as expressing frustration at realization that things have turned out badly or not as planned, or that one has just said or done something foolish. And now, before we search it up, here's a quick recap of how we got to The Simpsons today. We started with Greenhouse Academy, which stars Benjamin Papik, who is in Goosebumps with Jack Black, who is in Jumanji 2 with Dwayne Johnson, who is in Moana with Tamora Morrison, who is in Star Wars Revenge of the Sith with James Earl Jones, who is in Field of Dreams with Amy Madigan and Gabby Hoffman, who is in Uncle Buck with Anna Klumsky, who is in My Girl with Macaulay Culkin, who is in Home Alone with John Hurd, who is in Big with Tom Hanks, who is in Toy Story 4 with Kristen Shaw, who is in The Muppets with Chris Cooper, who is in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with Kelly Davis, who is in Outer Banks with Madison Bailey, who is in the Impractical Jokers movie with Joey Fatone, who is in an episode of The Simpsons. Now it's time to search it up. Let's see. Oh, Hank Azaria. He does a ton of voices on The Simpsons, including Moe and Chief Wiggum. He was also in The Smurfs playing Gargamel. Well, see you next time to talk about the Smurfs.